You're watching a B.A.S.S. presentation.
Well, here we go, all aboard for the next Bassmaster event, the St. Croix Bassmaster Open at Leech Lake in Minnesota, sponsored by 7 Reels. So we have been off of the Opens for a while. The Bassmaster Elite Series has wrapped up their weekend, their season last week. And here we go with the next one up, and there is the way it stands right now. Unofficial leaderboard as we talked on Friday afternoon. And Brett Cannon of Mississippi, the man on top, and the local favorite, Eastern Fothergill, Ronnie Moore, is in second.
Man, this top 10 is absolutely stacked. And obviously, if you're catching up with us late, this is day 1 of the tournament instead of day 2. Weather shortened this event to 2 days, so we will have day 1 is going on right now, weigh-in about to start, and day 2 will be live tomorrow to end it all. And like you said, Easton Fothergill in there with Brett Cannon. You got Dakota Ebert. Imagine, Tommy, coming into the 7th stop with a 1-point lead in points and only extending it by 1 point because your nearest pursuer is right behind
That's
you.
right. Those guys keep popping up in the top 10. That's the way that whole thing
Do that
works.
long enough and you'll be on the Elite Series.
Absolutely. Let's go to northern Minnesota, to the 3rd largest lake in the state of Minnesota, Leech Lake there, a natural lake glacially formed like many of the other big lakes in Minnesota. Walker, Minnesota is where our launch takes place and our weigh-ins each and every day. Not like Mille Lacs exactly, Ronnie. Mille Lacs is a big bowl. This one's got some different areas and different characters depending on which direction you go.
It definitely has some different bays and areas that you can get specific for types of fish. You can go to specific smallmouth regions on Leech Lake, and then you can spend all day in territory that would be largemouth water, you know, specifically lily pads, rice fields, things like that. But this place is littered with boulders. It does have big smallmouth and largemouth. Guys thought maybe you dominate with one or the other, and many thought you're going to have a mixed bag to probably win. So it'll be interesting to see at the weigh-in what those fish weigh in on day 1 and what we see tomorrow on live.
All right. Well, everyone talks about the fact that there are some big smallmouth here, big largemouth as well. So as we kind of break this lake down, as we mentioned, we've got different environments here. You can get out in the big water with the wind and go like that, but you can also go in some very vegetated places, back in the backwaters, fish for largemouth, depending on how far you want to get back in the wild rice fields there. In fact, they're saying the harvesting of the wild rice is going on, so there's going to be some competition on the water. Let's hope it's friendly.
Hey, there's never a Bassmaster event without drama, Tommy,
sure.
so that doesn't shock me one bit at all. But what's someone, you know, looking at Leech Lake coming into the year, Tommy, it was the most highly anticipated event. We hadn't had a B.A.S.S. event here. The fishing was astounding. All the Midwesterners signed up to be here because of this tournament specifically. But coming into practice, a lot of people said it was tough, and someone very wise this week specifically told me, hey, when you get news, it's not always as good as you think it is, and it might not always be as bad as you think it is. Those day 1 weights right now on the leaderboard show us this place does have big ones, and we're going to see them show up, especially with this being a 2-day shootout. There's no saving fish from day 1 to day 2 to try to make day 3. You're putting all your chips out today, and you're going to try to make it to the top 10 tomorrow to get a camera and be in a good position to maybe win this event.
It's going to be a whole lot of fun to watch. Another good news, bad news situation regards the size of the smallmouth. Yeah, they are big there. They're fat, porky, fed up because there's a huge supply of crawfish. The bad part of that is it's so good that it's hard to get them to take your artificial lure.
Yes, and one thing that Hank Weldon was telling me is that on local tournaments or just regular state regulations, 12 and 14 inches are what these fish can measure most of the time. But for B.A.S.S. this week, 15 inches for smallmouth and largemouth, so it's a little bit bigger size limit. You may see less keepers, but we should see plenty of bites. The keepers you do get, though, Tommy, will be good ones, as it looks like on the leaderboard.
Well, they were spared 1 day of pressure. We've got that going for us right there. And a lot of folks say these northern lakes don't handle pressure as well as maybe some of the ones we're more familiar with.
Yeah, you mentioned Easton Fothergill, obviously second in the Bass Track leaderboard and first in our points overall. He said way back at Ouachita in February, he said, I don't know how this lake will fish with 225 boats for as many days of practice and a tournament we'll get. They at least got 1 more day of relief with that day off with weather.
All right, well, let's take a look at our Tackle Warehouse EQ. Of course, the EQ is you fish all 9 events these open events in order to find a pathway to the Bassmaster Elite Series. And there are standings as this tournament begins here. Easton Fothergill, notably, this is his home water, and he is also in the lead.
Yeah, a lot of these guys, like even Evan Kung down in 6th, said, hey, I survived the southern swing. I'm getting up to St. Clair. I'm getting up to Leech, Mississippi River, more my territory. Same goes for Easton Fothergill. Very well prepared. Dakota Ebert, totally expected him to be here. Same thing for Cody Meyer. Tucker Smith, not a shock whatsoever. Jack York has really came on strong lately. We mentioned Evan Kung. Andrew Loberg, a former college angler from the West Coast, moving to Guntersville. Absolutely a stud. We saw him almost win at Eufaula last stop, or 2 stops ago, where Fothergill took the title. Then you have a Floridian, Bobby Bakewell, and it just as tight at the top with 1 point, Tommy. It's only 1 point separating Matt Adams and Emil Wagner for the last spot, the cut spot.
Yeah, about 150 of our 200-plus anglers are participating in the EQs there, so that's a big part of the story. We will have the whole story for you tomorrow. 5.5 hours coverage coming up first on FS1. Should be a great, great morning for you. The St. Croix Bassmaster opens Leech Lake event here, presented by 7. Hope you can join us. We'll, of course, have coverage after that coming up here on Bassmaster.com.
Yeah, and Tommy, we have Bob Downey, Elite Series Pro from the Wisconsin-Minnesota region. He's coming down right now to join us tomorrow on set.
All right, well, it should be a whole lot of fun, and we'll get a treat. We'll get to look at a big, giant new lake for all of us. Please join us.